1260. Welcome to your home for local sports in Syracuse. Outside the Box Score with Mark Rowlands starts right now.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Outside the Box Score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the Score 1260. A happy new year to you all. Our first show of the newly minted 2025 year. I hope everyone's staying safe out there. The weather is quite brutal. Driving into the studio today was not very fun. I actually just walked in the building about 5 minutes ago after leaving at 10 o'clock to make a 15-minute drive. So, yeah, it's pretty nasty out there. If you're out on the roads, I hope you stay safe. And don't drive anywhere unless you absolutely have to today, because it is absolutely nuts out there. No Josh today because of the aforementioned road. So you just get a solo show today. He was unable to make it in. He does drive from Rome, New York most weeks to do this show. So kind of a difficult drive for him. By the time he would have left his house, he wouldn't have gotten here until after the show was over anyway. So no Josh today. Just going to be me hanging out with you, and going to talk some Syracuse basketball. Going to talk some college football playoff. The quarterfinals just wrapped up, so some teams moving on in the first ever 12-team college football playoff. So we'll talk about that. Anything you guys want to talk about, 315-671-1260 is the phone number if you want to chime in. That's 315-671-1260. And we're just going to take a timeout because I'm going to be honest. I got to catch my breath a little bit. I had to walk up to the studio from my parked car. So we're going to take a really quick timeout. We'll be back in just a minute here on Outside the Box Score, your home for local sports in Syracuse on the Score 1260.
Hey, can you blow up some balloons for Jack's party?
I can't. I'm so congested.
You need Sinex Saline from Vicks.
Sinex Saline Nasal Spray?
Yeah, just Sinex.
Well, yeah, but I had to park like 3 blocks away because there was no chance I could get into the parking lot. So my car is not exactly close. Excuse me, sir. This is not Galaxy. This is Cumulus. This is the lovely Cumulus Media that I work for.
That we must move out now. Selection is incredible. Shop cars, trucks, and SUVs, all marked with discounts bigger than ever. Plus, interest rates have just been lowered, saving you even more. Don't wait. Take advantage of discounts you may never see again on thousands.
Yeah, pretty close enough.
Buying pre-owned from McGuire is easy. Our upfront lowest price is clearly marked on
Jim, stop betting on Syracuse. The team is bad. Stop falling into the trap that are the Syracuse Orange basketball team. They're not dude. They just stink. I do need a beer on this broadcast, Pat. Trust me. That would be great. If anyone would like to make a Myers Creek delivery to the studio, it would be much appreciated. And we're back outside the box score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the Score 1260. We got Jim and Pat in the chat as always, talking a little football playoff, talking a little SU basketball. Jim wants to lay the 8.5. Was it 8.5? You said, Jim, for Syracuse that Syracuse is getting today. At Florida State, 6:00 on the ACC network. Florida State in a bit of turmoil right now. 6 former players suing head coach Leonard Hamilton over NIL money that was not paid to them. Total lawsuit worth $1.5 million. Each player from the team looking for $250,000 that was promised to them, yet they never received. We also have, he says he's a first time or a long time listener, first time chatter, but that also isn't true. Josh is in the chat talking about his Georgetown Hoyas, who I have to say, Josh, Georgetown ain't bad. 12-2, 3-0 in conference play. They beat Creighton. They beat Syracuse. Georgetown looking pretty good right now. I'm not going to sit here and say the Hoyas are back, but because I hate them and I hope they never come back. But the Hoyas not looking too bad, so I will give Georgetown some props after we berated Syracuse for losing to them on this show, 75-71 at the JMA Wireless Dome, because I didn't think Georgetown was that good, but Georgetown continues to prove me wrong. And Jim brought up SU, a lot of local talking heads saying SU would be a lot better if J.J. Starling was playing. That I do think is true. Excuse me. I do think it's true that Syracuse would have more success this season if J.J. Starling was playing. I don't think they'd be 6-7. I think they might be 8-5. I don't think he adds, that many wins. Maryland absolutely dismantled us. I don't think Michael Jordan could have played on our team and we would have beat Maryland that night. We don't beat Tennessee. We probably beat Notre Dame. We might beat Georgetown. And we might beat Wake Forest. But I was at the Wake Forest game on Tuesday. SU loses 81-71. The problems with this team infuriate me because they're the opposite of problems Syracuse has had in the past. Syracuse out-rebounded Wake Forest by 10. Eddie Lampkin had 10 of his own. Jair Davis had 7. Kyle Cuff Jr., who played 36 minutes off the bench, by the way, he had 6 rebounds. And Lucas Taylor threw in 5 as well. I just got to say, Jim, how many rebounds did Chris Bell get? He got 0 in the 9 minutes that he played. Once again, Donnie Freeman only plays 23 minutes. Elijah Moore, in the starting lineup, plays 6 in favor of Lucas Taylor and Kyle Cuff Jr., who came off the bench, each of which had 36 minutes. Neither of them were subbed out in the second half. Jaquan Carlos, 34 minutes as well. I know J.J. Starling being out means a lot for this team. Bell did not get an assist. He did have a steal. Chris Bell did have a steal, but not an assist, Jim. And 2 turnovers and a foul with 0 points in 9 minutes. I've been pounding on the table for this in recent weeks, that Elijah Moore should be in the starting lineup game in and game out. And we get him in the starting lineup. And he plays 6 minutes. Now, Kyle Cuff, if you look at strictly the box score and you see 2 of 14 from the field, 1 of 8 from 3, 14 points in 36 minutes, you're like, and he did go 9 of 11 from free throw line. You're like, God, what a terrible game Kyle Cuff had. That box score doesn't tell the story. He had a steal and 2 assists, but he was very active defensively. He was all over the place on the glass. He was diving for loose balls. He was doing all the things that you're kind of used to an SU guard doing. Playing super hard, for every second that he was out on the floor. And so I'm not going to sit here and say Kyle Cuff Jr. had a very bad game despite the poor shooting numbers. I think he had quite a good game. He drew contact better than anyone else that saw the floor during that game. He was the only one with double-digit free throw attempts. He was doing exactly what he was out there to do. It would have been nice if a few more of the shots fell, but fine with how he played. Lucas Taylor played well coming off the bench. 3 of 7 from 3, 6 of 11 from the field. Tied for leading scorer for SU with 16 points with Jaquan Carlos, which was the second highest total by anyone in the game. Hunter Salas for Wake Forest had 23. He led all scorers. So Cuff and Taylor came off the bench and did their thing, which is great. We couldn't see Elijah Moore for a single possession in the second half. Not one. This guy had to ride the pine for 20 minutes of basketball in the second half in a close game. Syracuse trailed at 1 point, 16-2, and came all the way back, only trailed by 2 at halftime. At 1 point had, I believe, an 8-point lead. And then once again, down the stretch, blow it on defense. Now, say what you want about Donnie Freeman or Elijah Moore's defensive abilities, or Chris Bell for that matter. I'm not going to sit here and say any of them are making all ACC defense this year. But I will say, at times down the stretch, you need fresh legs out there. When Kyle Cuff plays pretty much 36 consecutive minutes, same with Lucas Taylor, never saw the bench in the second half, they're going to be gassed. And they looked gassed at the end of that game, especially with how Cuff and Taylor were putting their bodies on the line for the entire second half. So just give me a couple of defensive possessions down the stretch where you give Wake Forest a different look. You throw Moore out there. You throw Freeman out there. Something they didn't see much of in the second half. It's just questionable to me how game in and game out it seems like we have the same issues, or at least I do, have the same issues with what I'm seeing out of Syracuse basketball. Because at least in recent years, an issue would get kind of fixed and then a new issue would arise. It's just the same thing over and over again. Jim says other local talking heads say it's not who starts, but who finishes games. How can they then say if you take someone out of the starting lineup, you might lose him mentally? Starting must be important then. How about this? Your starting and finishing lineup can be pretty much the same. Those are the crunch time guys. You want to get out to a hot start, something Syracuse has never done this year. They've gotten off to atrocious starts for most of the season. This game included. Like I said, they trailed 16-2 to start this one. Then they went on, I think they scored, they went on like a 26-4 run or something like that. They had an insane run in the first half that was mainly led by Lucas Taylor and Kyle Cuff. I don't even know what to do with this team anymore. Last night, I saw someone that he was wearing an SU quarter zip, and he was talking about how tonight he was trying to make plans for the game since, they're down in Florida State and he can't go. Season ticket holder for a long time. And I asked him, I was like, are you still fully invested in this season? And God bless him, he said, yeah, this is my team, and I care more about Syracuse Orange basketball than I do any other team that I root for. And I just can't bring myself to care about how the team does for most of the season because it's just a lost year. Syracuse legitimately might not win 10 games. That's something I never thought I would say. But there is a legitimate chance that this team doesn't win 10 games. Not 20, not 15, just go 500. No. I wouldn't be shocked if Syracuse ended the season with 8-9 wins. Because who are we going to beat in conference? Just looking at the upcoming schedule. Florida State, who knows? Georgia Tech, who knows? Boston College isn't very good. Neither are we. Thankfully, we only get Duke and UNC once this year, and they're both in our building. Jim Lariniega isn't at Miami anymore. We've got to go down there. Who knows how that game's going to go? We still got 2 games against Pitt. Those are always tough games. It doesn't matter who or the records of both teams. Those are always tough games. But we got 2 games against Pitt. Stanford and Cal aren't great basketball schools. Don't care. BC, Stanford, and Cal, like Jim said, are our best chances. And I don't know if we can beat all of them. We go 2 Stanford and 2 Cal, and we've got a 1-1 against BC. I got nothing. 4 games, out of those 4 games, I'm hoping SU wins 2 of them. I'm hoping Syracuse goes 2-2 in a 4-game stretch. Well, not even a stretch, but in a group of 4 games against Boston College, Stanford, and Cal. What happened? I mean, what happened? J.J. Starling hopefully should be coming back soon. He was on the bench without a wrap on his hand during the Wake Forest game. But even if he comes back soon, even if he plays today, I don't know what the future of this team is. I'd love to know what people out there listening think the upside for this Syracuse team is this year. Because going into the season with Donnie Freeman and Elijah Moore, guys, and Eddie Lampkin, guys I thought would play 30, 32 minutes a game, I thought Syracuse had a chance to be good. It was year 2 of Autry. There were some growing pains last year, but we weren't sure. I just don't get it. I just don't get it. I'm staring dead in the face right now on ESPN.com. And it says leading scorer for the Syracuse Orange in points per game is Donnie Freeman. And then right next to that, it says 25 minutes per game. 25 minutes per game, averaging 13 points in 7.8 rebounds. So 8 rebounds. 13 and 7. Or 8. I just don't get it. And I know Eddie Lampkin isn't what we thought he was going to be when he came in. I asked him on Tuesday how his back was feeling. He said it's starting to feel better, but I don't think it's just the back. The conditioning can be called into question with Eddie Lampkin, that's for sure. He struggles. It seems like he struggles to get up and down the court. So, I got nothing. Pat said the upside for this team is a better draft pick, which it's seasons like this I wish there was a draft in college basketball because SU would have a pretty damn good one if it went by conference. We'd have one of the better draft picks in the ACC, and that's for sure. Jim says upside is making the ACC tournament. Fantastic. That's what I want. I want the upside for this team to not miss the conference tournament. I know I can't be the only Syracuse fan that feels like this, right? I know a lot of Syracuse fans are frustrated. But this is a level that I've never seen Syracuse basketball at. I know a lot of people quite a bit older than me have never seen Syracuse basketball at a level like this. This feels like more than a down year. This feels like a loss of a program. A program with such great history. National championship winning program. One of the great coaches in the history of college basketball. Some of the best players in college basketball history to come through here. And right now we're talking about a team that lost by 27 to Maryland, lost by 26 to Tennessee. And Tennessee's a damn good team. There's no shame in losing Tennessee. At times, they've looked like the best team in the country this year. But put up a fight. Put up a fight against Maryland. Notre Dame. You lost to Notre freaking Dame. Not in football. In basketball. It's embarrassing. It's an embarrassment of a team for SU fans. And Jim says Autry will have a young team excuse next year for another pass, so we'll have 2 more seasons to right the ship. I've always said on this show you got to give college coaches a full recruiting cycle, but with everything going on in the world of college sports now, I don't know if 4 years is the right number anymore. Jim brings up a good point. Notre Dame also without their best player, so we don't even have that excuse for the Notre Dame game. But I don't know if the 4-year, typical college coach thing is the same anymore because a full cycle is just a season or 2 now. And I don't want to have a quick hook, but man, the team's just tough to watch. They're playing at 6 o'clock tonight. Will I watch the game? Probably. That's not an answer I normally give. Me saying I'll probably watch the SU game is not something I normally say. Yeah, Bengals Steelers is on at the same time. That's a damn good game, Jim. It's a damn good game. T. Higgins might not be playing. Chase Brown might not be playing. I can watch Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase go up against that Steelers defense. Some playoff implications there, Jim. I'm starting to sound like Tony Romo. It's a pretty good game. That might have my attention. Syracuse basketball might not be able to hold my attention in a game where they play a conference opponent that historically we've had trouble with. Leonard Hamilton has done a very good job at Florida State outside of this whole NIL thing, which he's being sued over now. But always been a thorn in Syracuse's side, Leonard Hamilton. But still might not hold my attention over a AFC football game that I have zero stake in. What's that say? Not much for the Syracuse Orange basketball team. We got to take a timeout. Will I go on another rant about this team by the end of the show? Maybe I will. Who knows? Who knows? Phone lines are open, 315-671-1260. That's 315-671-1260 if you want to chime in. We'll be back in just a minute here on Outside the Box Score. For the best local beer in Central New York, the only place you need to look is Myers Creek Brewing Company, with 16 different beers on tap at both the Inner Harbor in Syracuse and the Palace that is the Cazenovia location. Myers Creek has something for everyone. Want a bite to eat? Both locations feature a kitchen with delicious pizzas, some of the best wings in Syracuse, and much more. Make sure to check out our friends at Myers Creek Brewing Company, the official bar of Outside the Box Score.
I'll be honest.
Should one get promises in writing? Yeah, I mean, I don't even know where. I don't even know where this whole NIL thing goes in coming years because we're just going to see more and more stuff like this. Would you take a verbal job offer or want it in writing? I mean, I got my job at Bellevue Country Club in a bar, so I was sitting there with sitting there and shout out the original official bar of Outside the Box Score, Steve's, and I was sitting there on like a Saturday afternoon or something, and their then head pro Kevin McCarthy, very good guy. He's over at Timber Banks now. He came up to me, and I had never met him before, and he goes, "Are you a golfer?" And of course, my response was, "Why? Is it because I'm white and wearing a quarter zip?" There's a Denny McCarthy on tour. But I said, "Why? Is it because I'm white and wearing a quarter zip?" And he said, "Yeah, kinda." And we laughed, and then I said, "Yes, I am a golfer." And then he goes, "All right, cool. You want a job?" What? Yeah. Want a job working at Bellevue Country Club? Sure. Why not? Yeah, I mean, I'm more of a golfer now than I. Yeah, I'm a golfer. Yeah, I'm more of a golfer now. Hey, it's Century going on this weekend too. I forgot about that. Gotta get that leaderboard up. Yeah, that time I played golf. Yeah, no, certainly not golf weather today. We've been setting up the simulators at Bellevue this week, past couple of days, and really trying to take down some ceiling tiles to make them fit, and got me pretty good. And we're back outside the box score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the score 1260. Got a question from Pat. A question that a lot of us, I'm sure, have dealt with and feel frustrated by. Let me ask you a question, Mark. What is the point of making an appointment somewhere when they still make you wait a half an hour? Oh, Pat, how right you are. That's happened to me many times. It infuriates me every single time. You're at urgent care. You okay, buddy? Feeling a little sick? Or what brings you to urgent care? Ah, sinus infection. Okay. Pat, by the way, one of the kings of sinus infections. This guy gets a sinus infection every 6 weeks, it seems. We were just talking we were just talking golf a little bit during the break. If you want to talk to me during the breaks, you can go to twitch.tv/marker_box. Follow me on Twitter at marker_box. The show is live streamed there as well. Or go to the Score 1260 YouTube channel. That's how I'm talking to these guys without going to the phone lines. They're always in my chat, and I'm thankful for it. So it doesn't seem like I'm just sitting here talking into the void. I do have someone to talk to. And we were talking golf. Obviously, not golf weather out there right now with the approximately 7 feet of snow we've gotten in the past 24 hours. But it is golf weather in Kapalua, Hawaii, at the Kapalua Resort, where the Century, formerly known as the Tournament of Champions, now just known as the Century, is going on. First event of the PGA Tour season. Current leader Hideki Matsuyama out of Japan, 16 under par, followed by Colin Morikawa. He's at 15, and then a few guys at 14 under par. The Canadian Corey Connors, and then a couple of Americans, Maverick McNeely and Tom Hoagie, and Thomas Dietrich out of Germany, all sitting at 14 under par. Yeah, Jim, you jinxed yourself. He said Oswego was dodging the snow right now. Bad idea, because we both know that this is lake effect out there right now, and we both know what kind of snow really screws over Oswego. That's the lake effect. So Oswego, I believe, is supposed to be getting nailed here coming up. There was some interesting talk in the world of golf recently, actually, which I wasn't even originally planning on bringing up, but I think is pretty important to the future of the PGA Tour. And that's changing the Tour Championship. Now, the Tour Championship is the last big event of the year. It's always played at East Lake in Atlanta, a gorgeous golf course. And they've had this format since 2019 that I've never liked. If you go into the Tour Championship with the most FedEx Cup points, you automatically start at 10 under par. Then, if you have the second most, you're at 9 under. Then there's a couple guys at 8 under, and then there's a few guys at 7, all the way down to starting even par. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. Because realistically, that means there's about 7 guys with a chance. Where in every other golf tournament, you go into it with 140, 120, 70, based on whatever event it is, doesn't matter, with that many guys that have a chance to win that tournament. Not just like 7. And I know you want to celebrate the guy who had the best year. Last year was Scotty Scheffler. He goes into it at 10 under par, and he wins the Tour Championship because he's Scotty Scheffler. I think if everyone started even par, there's a decent chance Scotty Scheffler wins the tournament anyway. So I don't think that matters that much. Now, what they're talking about doing, potentially, is a bracket-style tournament. This, I love. One of my favorite events of the year, which they don't have anymore, was the WGC Dell Technologies Match Play Tournament. It was always held in, I want to say Dallas. It was always in Texas. Or it might have been Austin Country Club. Really cool golf course. It was like set up for match play, and they had this match play tournament, and it was always a lot of fun. Some different guys would win it because there are just some guys that are better match play players than others. This would be awesome. I would love to see a match play tour championship. I don't care if right now, if it were to change this year, the date would be the same, August 21st to the 24th, and the field size of 30 would stay the same. That's fine. I would love to see it be a 64 player bracket in the future. You can have it in mid-August. You can still do it at East Lake, whatever. But that would be great. And Jim says, if you go to match play, you need to give the money leader like a bye. Yeah, I say if you make it 64 players, the top 8, whatever, get a bye. You're immediately on to the next round. Like, that's fine. Incentivize the top guys however you want. Or maybe you do a smaller group. Or yeah, you can't give buys at 64. But whatever. Figure out some way with some number where you could give buys. Or you do a smaller group. Like, I'm trying to remember which bowling tournament it is. I want to say it's like the PBA Masters or something, where it's a ladder format. And this would take longer, but you just take the top 8 guys or something. 8 plays 7 in a match. The winner of that plays 6. The winner of that match plays 5. And you work your way up to like a Scotty Scheffler or whoever is number 1 at that time. That would be a really cool idea too. But that makes it smaller if you just want to celebrate the guys that were the top of the class of the tour over the course of the year. Last year would have been Scheffler and Schauffele and guys like Hideki had a really good year last year. You could do something like that. In my opinion, that draws so much more interest into the event instead of just going in saying, oh, so Scotty starts with a 10-shot lead over the guy in 30th automatically before ball is even teed up. He's just going to win again. That's so much better. For once, golf had a good idea. A lot of the ideas coming out of the PGA Tour in recent years have not been very well liked, including getting rid of the last match play event. A lot of golf fans like myself love that tournament. So they got rid of that because the country club wanted more money and the tour didn't want to pay it. It was a whole thing. Finally, golf has a good idea. Jim says somehow make it so the top four get buys to make the final 8. Sure. Figure out some way to do it like that. I'm fine with it. As long as it's not the stupid format that they have right now. Because I know a lot of people don't like it. I know a lot of people in golf don't like it because it's not fair. So I'm all in on this. Jay Monahan, do your thing. You're the commissioner. Make a good decision for once. Love it. Absolutely love it. PGA Tour has been making a lot of changes recently too. They added this I forget what it's called, but they have this crew of content creators that are putting ideas forward to improve golf viewership in the years coming up. They've got a lot of good people involved. The Bob Does Sports guys, the Foreplay guys from Barstool Sports, Paige Sporanic, a lot of high-level golf influencers that are now partnered with the PGA Tour to try to grow the game to a more expansive audience, because I've been watching golf my entire life. That's because my dad's a golfer. My dad's been watching golf every weekend since golf's been on TV pretty much. So for me, this isn't for me because I'm going to watch it no matter what. I've already watched some of the Century. So that stuff isn't for me because they've already got me. But for the casual fan, maybe the guy who only watches the Masters, only watches the Ryder Cup, which I'm so excited to go to. Yeah, get that guy to watch the Memorial. or the Rocket Mortgage. That is another good idea by the PGA Tour. They're on a little bit of a hot streak. I'm not going to give them too much credit, but they're on a little bit of a hot streak. We got to take a timeout. Jim has a great question for me that we're going to discuss after the break because it's really interesting, and it's about the college football playoff. So we're going to take a timeout. We'll be back, and we'll talk about the college football playoff right here on the Score 1260.
If you're a fan of local craft beer, the only place you need to go is Myers Creek Brewing Company with 16 brews on tap at both the Cazenovia and Inner Harbor locations. Myers Creek has the best selection of locally brewed libations in all of central New York. Want a nice hazy IPA? The Velvet Fog is a must-try. More of a traditional Pilsner, how about the Floatin' on By? And for you sour drinkers, the It Takes Blue to Mango. So crack open a cold one with the official beer of Outside the Box Score, Myers Creek.
No one sells their stock.
Pat says I look hungover. I'm actually not. I've had a little cold, but I'm not hungover. Just tired. Didn't sleep very well last night. You should have saw me on Wednesday. I was in Rochester with Josh and those guys from college, and for New Year's Eve on Tuesday. And Wednesday was tough. Wednesday was real tough. I don't think my hangover went away until Thursday. I was at Swallows last night, though. So I do not blame Josh. I blame myself for drinking 6 blue lights in the first 20 minutes of me being there, with many more to come after. Oh, I forgot Tommy went down to New Orleans. I totally forgot about that. That's awful. And we're back outside the box score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the Score 1260. Got a question from Jim before we went to break that I wanted to discuss after the break because I wanted a little bit more time to talk about it. College football playoff. We're down to 4 teams: Texas, Ohio State, Penn State, and Notre Dame. None of the top 4 seeds remain in the first ever college football playoff. The 12-team college football playoff. Arizona State and Boise State bounced rather convincingly. Or actually, Arizona State came back against Texas. That's right. But great game. But they were down big early in that one. Arizona State came all the way back. Lost in double overtime to Texas, 39-31. Ohio State giving a shellacking to my Oregon Ducks, 41-21. And that game was not a 20-point game. It felt like Ohio State won that game by 100. Just an absolute trouncing by the Buckeyes over my Oregon Ducks. Really thought it was our year. Notre Dame beating Georgia 23-10. That game never felt close either. And Penn State, Boise State, after the first quarter when it was tied up at 3 and then Notre Dame scored, it felt like it was over after that. Penn State beating Boise State 31-14. Jim asked me the question, who am I taking in the semifinals, Ohio State or the field? I think I'm taking Ohio State. It pains me to say. I think that's the championship. I think Notre Dame beats Penn State. Notre Dame is great. I think right now these are the 2 best teams, are Ohio State and Notre Dame. So I think that's the matchup in the championship game. Ohio State just impressed me so much the past 2 games. Michigan broke Ohio State and then immediately fixed them. That game, it seemed like Ohio State, they're done. They lost to Michigan again. Everyone wants Ryan Day out the building. And then they go and give it to Tennessee in round 1. Then they give it to Oregon, the number 1 team in the country, undefeated Oregon, who beat Ohio State in an embarrassing fashion the last time they played, with Will Howard sliding his time expired. But they're just too stacked. I think Ohio State is just too talented. Will Howard, I don't think is the best quarterback they've ever had. I liked him at Kansas State. I've seen him a couple times this year in person and wasn't overly impressed. But he's had a couple of good games since the Michigan game and since that Oregon game, which was still a good game that he had. He just made a stupid mistake at the end of the game. And Jim brought up the guy I wanted to mention. Jeremiah Smith, number 4, wide receiver for Ohio State, is incredible. This guy, first of all, you can't guard him one-on-one. And they were talking about that during that Oregon game. They're like, you can't guard him one-on-one because he's just going to get open. He will find a way to get wide open. Easily. 6'3", 225 per Google for a true freshman wide receiver. Big boy. He's going to get open. If you double cover him, if you drape all over him, he's going to jump over you and still make the catch. So that doesn't matter. You can't triple cover him because you're just going to leave any other one of their talented wide receivers open. He's faster than anyone on your defense. He can jump over you. He's got great hands. He's got great instincts. Jim says he would be the number 1 pick this year. He probably would. And he probably will be in that conversation 2 years from now when he's draft eligible. If he doesn't get hurt, God forbid. Then you've got not 1, but 2 legitimate number 1 running backs. Which, sure, why not? In Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins. Henderson this year, 925 rushing yards with 10 touchdowns. Judkins, 924 rushing yards with 10 touchdowns. Will Howard, 3,500 yards on the season, 32 touchdowns, 9 interceptions. And that's a guy that I'm like, I don't know if he's that good. Jeremiah Smith this year had 1,200 yards and 14 touchdowns. Emeka Ibuka had 896 yards and 10 touchdowns. Their offense is just so dynamic. Their third-string running back averages 4 yards a carry with a couple of touchdowns this year. That's their third-string guy, averages 4 yards a carry. Their defense is good. They've got Cody Simon with 7 sacks this year, 97 tackles. Total tackles. JT Tuimalu, 10 sacks this year. Top to bottom, I think they are the most talented team in the country. And Notre Dame is great. I think these are the 2 best teams in the country. But I don't know if anyone right now in college football can keep up with how dynamic both sides of the football are for Ohio State. So yeah, you give me Ohio State versus the field, and I think I might have said this after they beat Tennessee too. Because I watched that game, and I might have said it after they beat Tennessee. That, yeah, them or the field, I'll take the Buckeyes. And my girlfriend's probably sitting at home listening to this right now, just loving everything she's hearing. Big Buckeye fan. Went to Ohio State for undergrad. The reason we've gone to 2 games this year, including the Michigan game. She's probably thrilled to hear me say this, but right now there is not a better team in college football. And this goes for the past 2 weeks. Anyone that was in the playoff, none of them, I think, can hold a candle to Ohio State right now. I do want to shout out Arizona State, though. Because, A, what a game they had against Texas. And B, Cam Scatabo. Heard all this talk about Ashton Genty and how he's going to be the guy that everyone's talking about in terms of running backs in college football this year. And deservedly so. Ashton Genty, I've talked about him a million times on this show. I love him. But Cam Scatabo heard all the talk and said, what if someone was not quite as dynamic, as good of a runner, but pretty close. Averaged 6 yards a clip with 21 touchdowns on the ground this year. But also decided, I'm going to have 100 receiving yards and a 42-yard touchdown pass. And I'm going to be throwing up on the sideline, visibly ill. Come in and will my team back against one of the biggest programs in college football, the Texas Longhorns. A measly Arizona State team that no one thought would be anything. Cam Scatabo, you're on not just my radar, because I've known about him for a little while, but everyone's radar. And good for you. We'll be back here in a minute on Outside the Box Score. Wrap things up on the Score 1260.
For the best local beer in Central New York, the only place you need to look is Myers Creek Brewing Company, with 16 different beers on tap at both the Inner Harbor in Syracuse and the Palace that is the Cazenovia location. Myers Creek has something for everyone. Want a bite to eat? Both locations feature a kitchen with delicious pizzas, some of the best wings in Syracuse, and much more. Make sure to check out our friends at Myers Creek Brewing Company, the official bar of Outside the Box Score.
If you have unfiled taxes,
We have a new caller. Still waiting. Okay, at least you're in the exam room now. Was the urgent sign lit up? Are you sure you're not just at CARE? Oh, you're at one of the nice Manhattan urgent cares? I just want antibiotics so I can have a cheaper night out tonight.
Did you know the best time of year to buy a car is December through early February? It's true.
Pat, take some time off. You just did fish weekend and all that stuff. Take a few days off.
Visit your area's favorite auto dealer and check in on the many vehicles available. Happy holidays from Cumulus Media.
Okay, good. Go to bed at 9 tonight. And we're back outside the box score with me, Mark Rowlands, your home for local sports in Syracuse, right here on the Score 1260. About to wrap things up, but first we're going to jump over to the phone lines. We've got Ron from Utica calling in. Ron, how we doing?
Hi there. Very well, thank you. I think Syracuse basketball will win more than 10 games because the whole most of the conference is pretty dreadful.
Well, it's interesting because this is the argument that's been had about the ACC a lot in recent years. And yeah, Virginia Tech not having a good year, Miami not having a good year, Georgia Tech 500. Notre Dame, 1 game over. Now, is it a down year for the ACC in terms of, yeah, there's one team that really, I think, has a chance to, like, win the national championship, and Duke. North Carolina isn't as good as we're used to them being. Louisville's having a solid year despite, recent turmoil. Pitt's having a good year. SMU's having a good year. Is there a lot of dominance in the ACC? No. Do I think a lot of those teams, even some of the lower ones I just named, are better than Syracuse? Yes, I do.
Well, however, to go 2-14 in the SEC Challenge is beyond dreadful.
Oh, yeah.
2-14. It's just incredibly bad.
It does prove that the ACC as a whole, in terms of the conference's competitiveness with the higher end of college basketball, is not at a level that we've seen in recent years. No, and the SEC is top to bottom stacked with basketball talent now.
Yes. We used to have 5 or 6 ranked teams automatically every year,
Mm-hmm.
and then how things change. Boom.
Yeah, it's been like this for a couple of years, but then at the same time, I don't necessarily view the ACC in recent years as a negative thing, because the ACC still has success when it matters, and this was proven last year in the NCAA tournament. So
Right.
these are teams that, yeah, they might not have the regular season success that we're used to seeing, but when you've got teams like NC State going as far as they did last year,
Right.
and teams that really weren't on a national radar, they always show up when it matters, and that's in March.
Well, I forgot about that, and I've got to run. So, hey, thank you.
Yeah, of course, Ron. Have a good weekend, okay?
Right.
Stay safe out
You
there.
too.
There he is. That's Ron from Utica calling in. And Jim says, wonder why the SEC didn't spend their football money on football then. And Jim says, like match play, the NCAA is a crapshoot. Yeah, the NCAA tournament's always a crapshoot. But there are trends that we've followed in recent years, and a lot of them maintain some truth. The Big 12 usually doesn't do as well as we all think they will. Going into it, it's always like, oh man, look at how stacked the Big 12 is this year. They've got 9 teams in the NCAA tournament. Yeah, and like one of them makes the Sweet 16. So, Big 12, usually frauds. The Big East is always feisty. They'll get like 5 teams in, and like 3 of them will do well. And UConn, obviously, is one back-to-back. The ACC is always scrappy. They've always got a couple of teams that, do they deserve to be there? Maybe not. And you're talking about, maybe they don't deserve to be there. Then all of a sudden that team's in the Elite Eight, and you're like, wow, how'd that happen? Huh. These are the trends that have happened in the past 5 NCAA tournaments or so, maybe more. But at least the last 5, and they still happen year in and year out. I'm going to continue, when March rolls around, to fade the Big 12, because the Big 12 usually has 1, maybe 2 teams that do well, and the rest of them that made the tournament for some reason stink once March comes around. The SEC right now is just a great basketball conference, plain and simple. So the Big East remains a great basketball conference. The Big 12, for the most part, is a great basketball conference. Is the ACC in that conversation right now? Probably not. 1 ranked team in the ACC, and that's Duke, currently ranked 4th. So no, the ACC isn't with them right now. But I have a feeling once March comes around, and a few of these ACC teams that people aren't paying attention to win a couple of games, the conversation will just go right back to where it always is. That's going to wrap things up for us today. Thank you so much for listening. We'll be back next week, same time, same channel, 11 a.m. right here on the Score 1260. We'll see you then. Peace.